So I need to put braid onto the spool. And I know lots of people struggle with this. The one thing you have to remember is that if you put braid straight onto a spool, it will slip. Even if you load the spool up, the braid's still got the potential to slip when you're playing a fish. So you need to use some form of backing. Now what I like to use is simply old monofilament. Now there are two ways of doing this. There's a really simple way and there's a mathematical way. So the really simple way is to actually have two spools of the same size. So I tend to use reels of the same size. And sometimes I'll keep a spare in case I have a breakage, and I might not even load that spool up on purpose. So I'll use the spool off the other reel. I'll put all the braid onto the reel, and in this situation I can tie it straight to the reel because it's not going to stay on it. I'll load up all the braid, tie a knot, put the backing on, the monofilament, up to a point on the spool that I like, and then I know that's fitted perfectly. I'll take that spool off, put the original spool back on, and reverse the process. So I'm tying the backing to the spool and reloading that spool from the spool I initially loaded, and that way you can get it perfect every time.
With me so far?
Affirmative.
Now if you haven't got a spare spool, there's a slightly mathematical way that I use. Let me show you.
Math, 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 math.
If you look on that spool, it says that at 0.2 mil, it's got a capacity of 300 meters. So I know that if my line is 0.2 of a mil, I can get 300 meters on it. My issue is my braid is 0.08 of a mil, so it's just under 0.1 of a mil. So if I convert my 0.2 at 300 meters to 0.1, that's 600 meters capacity. So basically, I can only half fill my braid with 0.08 or slightly under. So what I do is, don't use any more maths than that. I just look at the depth of my spool and I'll put a mark on it about halfway. So I know if I fill this spool up with backing to that black line, I've then got enough capacity to hold most of the braid from this spool. Now what you could do, if you're really tight, and sometimes I do this, or I should say being very precise, is you can get a line counter. So using the two spool method, I could use a line counter. Because this is a 300 meter spool, I could put 150 meters of braid onto the spool using the line counter, tie on the back in, take it up to the edge of the spool, reverse. But that's a bit fiddly, and you need a very good line counter, and I have got one somewhere, but I'll be honest with you, I can't find it. So we're going to do it the mathematical way. What type of knots do you need to do this? Well, I'll just keep it simple. You could go very technical and use all sorts of flashy knots, but I'll just do an overhand knot. Twice. Because it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. Because once you've got the mono in place, it beds into itself and it will hold itself tight to the reel. So I've done an overhand knot twice, using my very small pair of scissors. Yeah, use my kitchen scissors. And I'll just leave a little bit of a tag end, 3 or 4 mil tag end, not too tight, and then, you can't see that on there, but it's just an overhand knot. And I'm just going to wind that onto the reel. Now, how do you keep this nice and tight? Well, lots of people use finger pressure, but that hurts. So, just to get it going, I will use a little bit of a finger pressure, and then I like to use, where did I put them? Kitchen towels. So I've used a kitchen towel, just put the line through it like so, and just stick the rod butt into me groin, and keep your hand with the kitchen towel sort of centrally above the reel, and just keep the tension tight and get your backing on. That's what we're going to do. Making sure I'm checking every now and again that I haven't gone too far over that little black mark that I made on the spool. Right, something that I've noticed on the spool, it's got a bit of a strange lip. And when you run the braid off, it will catch. So the best thing to do in that situation is just put a pencil through it. If you had someone at home to help, they could just hold that for you. Or you can find all sorts of strange ways of holding the braid via the pencil.
That's disgusting.
It's up to you what you want to do. I'm actually going to have it on the floor and have the pencil resting on my feet above the floor. That'll work because the spool can rotate. What knot do you use to tie the backing to the braid? The smaller the knot, the better. And this, I don't want very short stubby tag ends because it makes a bobble on the spool as you're going over the fine braid. So I try and keep the tag ends, again, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 mil long. And all I do is tie an overhand knot because it will hold. You can wet it if you want to, it doesn't make any difference. And using my nice small pair of scissors, just cut off the tag ends. What I'm doing is I'm just checking that the tag ends from the overhand knot go up or down the spool, not along the spool, if that makes sense. I'm just going to do a couple of turns just to try and bed in the tag ends. It just hides it. It's probably me being completely OCD, but it makes it nice and smooth. You don't get a bump as you get taking the braid over the top of the knot. And because I haven't got a friendly helper with me here at the moment, I'm just going to stick my pencil and braid spool on my feet, and that will just spin. So all we're going to do is the same as we did with the mono backing. Just going to do a few turns using my fingers for tension, and then once that gets perfect, I'm going to use the kitchen roll again, exactly the same way as I did before. Just hold it up there, the first eye, stick the butt in my belly, and get this on nice and tight. By the way, I ended up putting my braid spool in my camera bag. It was far easier than using the pencil trick, so just a little soft bag, perfect. Right, there we go, and that's all of the braid, and that's pretty good. Look at that. That's pretty good, and that has laid on that spool pretty darn perfectly. These are Kuma reels, the more expensive ones. This is the ITX. It's a really nice reel and it has got really good line lay. Look at that. So basically I haven't fiddled this at all. You saw that come off the end of the spool. Got that pretty spot on. Spool is now empty. Yeah, I know it's a lot of braid on there, 300 meters, but like I said at the beginning, I got it for free. And if I was being really tight and anal, I would use a line counter. But that is how to get your braid on your reel. Make sure you use backing, use the 2-spool approach or use the mathematical approach, and you're gonna get it there or thereabouts every time, so you can't go far wrong. So hope that helps.